Hey there. I want to talk about program metrics for conversion rate optimization, experimentation, A/B testing programs. And not just program metrics, just metrics generally, like metric taxonomies. Been working with my team at CRO quite a bit on this week. We've been kind of evolving our goal tree maps, working on an article on that, etc. And so I thought it would be good to put together some of our frameworks and thinking and put this out for some feedback. When I think about metric taxonomies, I like to start here. Just long-term metrics, short-term leading metrics, and then like metrics that are kind of measuring the system. This is the top of the taxonomy. In my view, this comes from influenced by a lot of different sources, from Ron Kohavi and his writing and books, from business books like Four Disciplines of Execution, Traction, as well as like books like Built to Last. So a lot of sources kind of contribute to what's at the top of this and how this is functioning. But the crux of it is that you've got long-term metrics, like goal metrics, and this is your GPS. If we're going to let's use a car analogy here. Goal metrics are the navigation system, the North Star metrics, right? This in contrast to driver metrics. These are the shorter-term metrics that are more of like your speedometer. Conversion rate optimization, for example, AOV, etc. And then put this in further contrast to your alert and metrics and gauges like your tachometer or your heat gauge. These are your guardrail metrics. So this is an important framework here to start out, because a lot of times with a CRO program, you might hear that someone or organization is looking, their goal is to increase conversion rate. Well, no, that doesn't work. You want to monitor conversion rate. You want to focus on conversion rate because that's what's going to aim you at your goal. But the goal is not the rate itself. That's the driver metric. So it's important to have this distinction, in my opinion, and it solves a lot of the arguments with clients, from my view, of like what should be the goal of a program. Now, what I want to do is go through each of these. I want to show some examples of goal metrics, driver metrics, and guardrail metrics. Goal metrics, this is classic here. This comes from many sources. I didn't invent this. This is in Four Disciplines of Execution. This is in Built to Last, especially. And what's cool about it too, if you dig in, you've got these three options. You can, as an organization, you can choose a giant goal, a mountain to climb around revenue, around your customer, or around process and efficiency, maybe safety. What the organization chooses, what mountain they choose, is very interesting. It tells you a lot about the leadership and kind of values of that organization and values of what's in the DNA of that org. And it's pretty telling that most organizations will start with revenue metrics, but should end up with, and it is highly recommended, in these resources and these business books, to focus on the customer mountain instead of revenue and process. If you focus on your customer and have that focus there, then the other two kind of fall into line. But regardless, we have these mountains here as goal metrics. You can have goals around revenue. These are really common growth metrics as well. Customer metrics around engagement and satisfaction and loyalty, things like this. And then process metrics. For a lot of manufacturing, for example, it's really common to have safety metrics as a North Star. But anyway, these goals, these are mountains to climb, and that's a really good taxonomy there. Note again that here's my little blurb about read the Four Disciplines of Execution and or Built to Last to focus on customer metrics and how this should be the mountain that we all climb. So going forward, driver metrics. Here are some examples of some driver metrics. On the left here, revenue, customer driver metrics, some examples in different industries. Growth area driver metrics. This is fun if you're going to create a bit of a growth model and maybe you want to orient your experimentation program to acquisition and really just focus that, for example, as opposed to monetization, etc. And then if you've got a big organization, you might consider, and definitely if you're doing product-led growth, you might consider some OECs around customer engagement, especially to speak at loyalty, repeat purchase, and stuff like that. Here's an example of one that came out of Ron Kohavi's book, Trustworthy Online Controlled Experiments. Now, some examples of guardrail metrics. This I've stitched together myself. This is specific for experimentation program metrics. Very commonly known one, velocity over here on the left. You also have a set of quality metrics. I really like portfolio balance. I'll show an example of that in a second. Efficiency metrics, I really love agility. This is a harder one to get at, but it speaks to the efficiency and the speed of the flywheel. Effectiveness, trust speaks to the validity of the data that's coming through. This is a cool one to keep in mind. It might be front and center for a lot of this. And then other types of input metrics, like how many employees are trained, contributing, etc. Maturity level, if you're tracking that. So it's also important to note, as your experimentation CRO program grows, you might want to focus early stage on the input metrics, those ones with like how many people are just contributing and playing the game. Later on, the output metrics, this is a focus on the system itself, especially if you're growing, you're big in a big organization and you're looking to scale. And then later on, be really concerned with, of course, those outcome metrics. You want to monitor all of these at once, but it's just like where the focus is and where you don't want to compromise. Might at the early, mid, and later stage, this is a nice framework to think about a little bit and to help you focus. And as an example of that portfolio balance metric that I really love with regards to an experimentation program metric, we tag all of our tests iterative, substantial, disruptive. If you're running a program focused on optimization and margins, smaller types of tests, iterative types of tests, versus on the other side, big bets, right? Innovation and learning and value. You're here to learn. The way that you test, the way that you report out is quite different. But it's good to know, the balance of what you're doing. Thus, this portfolio balance, right? This metric right here, portfolio balance. You can even dashboard this out and say, hey, over this last quarter, we've got a lot of iterative tests, not so many disruptive tests. So we might want to consider like taking some bigger bets. All of this can combine into a bit of a framework for working in different types of CRO programs, right? So you've got the persona. If you've got a sort of a leader of your program that's process oriented, you've got maybe a leader that's customer oriented. This one's quite rare, but a fun one. And this one's the most common, these CRO programs that are very, very revenue focused. CRO versus CXO versus experimentation. And of course, your metric strategy is going to be different. If you're learning how to test, you're focusing on process, then the program metrics that I showed. If you're focusing on the customer, then it's your, kind of your CX strategy, your engagement metrics. And then if you're focused on revenue as your mountain to climb, then of course it's the revenue strategy is the unit economics of it all. Okay, so what? How do I bake this in? Let me show you some examples of that. This is a crazy slide. It's a little bit blurry, but that's okay. So bear with me. Over here on the left are some insights, and it doesn't matter where they are or what they are, but they represent insights. Like we got a bunch of data, we got some insights, and now we want to do something with it. We want to group our insights, and here is kind of some focal area grouping that we have. This is what these slides are supposed to represent. Some themes like content clarity and like product discovery might be a theme, or price confusion, or your price model might be a theme, or kind of data integrity might be even a theme. But as you are looking, you might have like 5 or 6 tests plus some strategic initiatives, maybe a bunch of just do it's and stuff like that to do, and that's what each of these cards represent. Each of those themes have an associative set of KPIs, set of metrics in a goal tree map that are associated with them. So what's cool with this is that you're like, okay, over the next quarter, let's focus on these 2 themes. Let's split our calories like this according to those 2 themes. Those 2 themes have these different sets of metrics. Let's automate that all and just create a dashboard to report on these sets of metrics per theme automatically. That's what this looks like a little bit over on the right. Here's a version of that right here. So goal tree map, you've got like a tactical metric, progression to checkout. Maybe this area, I don't know, there's some kind of theme in here. I'm not quite sure what it is. But progression to checkout, okay, we've got all of these tests that we're running. Maybe they're in different stages of look, these have scorecards, so they're cooked. This one's live, this one's prep. So you can tie your initiatives to the metric taxonomy very explicitly. That's the so what. This is how to get it into action so you can start reporting out based on metrics, based on your theme areas, etc. Cool. Hopefully this makes sense. We're already 10 minutes in. This is quite too long already. Please respond. Give me some comments. Give me some feedback on how this looks, how you're doing it in your organization. Let's work together to make it better for everybody. Awesome. Thanks.